Hello, welcome to Missing Piece. I'm Dr. P. Today we will talk about a spooky ghost hunt from over 200 years ago, when superstition was revived in the vicinity of Hammersmith, where the inhabitants were possessed that a ghost was haunting their neighborhood. This case is not merely just a ghost hunt. The supernatural case later turned into a true murder case, which set a legal precedent in the UK regarding self-defense. The case was not settled for 180 years until a Court of Appeal decision in 1984. Without further ado, let's jump right into this haunted murder case. First of all, where's Hammersmith? Hammersmith represented the border between the countryside and the city in late 1803 near the city of London. Starting from November 1803, a number of people in the Hammersmith area claimed to have seen or have been attacked by a ghost late at night. Local people described that the ghost was a tall spectre covered in a white shroud and suspected that it was the man who committed suicide the previous year by cutting his own throat and had been buried in the Hammersmith churchyard. At that time, the contemporary belief was that the suicide victim should not be buried in a consecrated ground, as their souls would not then be at rest. Some locals also added that the ghost wore a calfskin garment with horns and large glass eyes at other times. So did the ghost also turn into some sort of demon as well? Stories about the ghost soon start to circulate around the area. It was rumored that an elderly lady and a pregnant lady were seized by the ghost while walking nearby the churchyard, and they were so frightened that they both died from shock a few days afterwards. In another occasion, a driver of a horse wagon carrying 16 passengers encountered the ghost, and the driver again was so frightened that he fled on foot, abandoning his passengers and the horses. A local brewer, Thomas Broom, claimed to have been grabbed by the throat from behind while walking through a churchyard with a companion close to 9 p.m. He indicated that he managed to fight free of the ghost's grip and escape. Hearing the scuffle, the companion turned around, at which the ghost, quote, "gave me a twist round and I saw nothing. I gave a bit of a push out with my fist and felt something soft, like a greatcoat." Tales like rumors fueled a growing panic in the neighborhood. The panic quickly gave way to mass hysteria as more of the tales of the ghost attacks are told. Sightings now became a nightly occurrence. On December 29, 1803, a night watchman, William Girdle, saw a ghost near the Beaver Lane and gave it a chase. The ghost threw up its shroud and managed to escape. This encounter convinced Girdle that the creature was not a ghost, rather it was a man. With London not having an organized police force at the time, and as many people were very much frightened, according to Girdle, several citizens formed an armed patrol in hopes of apprehending the ghost. Determined to catch this public nuisance, soon a group of young men took to patrolling the streets of Hammersmith at night, seeking to put an end to this reign of terror before any further harm was done. Among them was a 29-year-old excise officer, Francis Smith. In hopes of catching this culprit, unfortunately, it was proven impossible to monitor the countless routes in and out of Hammersmith, and the spirits continued to terrorize residents. On January 3, 1804, Smith was on patrol, armed with a shotgun. Girdle met with Smith around 10:30 p.m. that night. After a brief conversation, the two men agreed to meet after Girdle had called the hour at 11 p.m. The two men then went on their separate ways. Just after 11 p.m., a bricklayer named Thomas Willwood had departed the home of his parents and sister following a visit. He was dressed in the traditional garb of his craft, linen trousers, waistcoat, and apron. His clothing was clean, new, and very white, as you might have imagined. White like the ghost hunted by Francis Smith. For our background, Millwood has already been suspected and mistaken twice for the Hammersmith ghost while walking at night in his all-white uniform. In an effort to stop folks from suspecting her husband for being the ghost, Millwood's wife asked him to cover his work clothes while in public. However, he refused. Alright friends, if you have been suspected for wearing white at night as the ghost that terrorized the community, and an armed patrol was formed to catch the ghost, would you still wear your white uniform that may get you suspected or even attacked by the armed patrol? Leave a comment below. Going back to the story. Millwood's sister, Annie Millwood, recounted that after seeing her brother off, she heard Smith shout, "Damn you! Who are you and what are you? Damn you, I'll shoot you!" and saw a flash of light as the sound of gunshots tore the night. His challenge was quickly followed by a single gunshot which went through the left lower jaw and killed Millwood. After hearing the shot, the night watchman William Girdle, Smith's neighbor John Locke, and another gentleman named George Stowe came running into the scene. They came upon a very much agitated Francis Smith, who then led them to the body of Thomas Millwood. Soon after, a constable arrived at the scene and took Smith into custody, and Millwood's body was taken into a nearby inn for autopsy. A surgeon, Mr. Flower, examined the body on January 6th and pronounced the death to be the result of a gunshot that penetrated the neck and injured the spinal marrow. I wonder why they sent the victim to a nearby inn for an autopsy, not a hospital or police station. I guess there weren't that many hospitals or police stations 200 years ago? Now I'm curious. Let's ask Google for the answer. Seems like according to London Lives, by 1800, Londoners had access to almost 20 hospitals, including the one called Middlesex Hospital, founded in 1745, which is 60 years earlier than Hammersmith incidents in 1804. Maybe the hospitals were too expensive? Well, they still are today. I was also very surprised that the doctor would just came to an inn for autopsy upon request. Now the ghost was killed by accident. The remorseful Smith surrendered to the authority, who took him to jail. Smith was placed on trial a week after he shot and killed Thomas Wilson. And on January 13, the trial that ensued became a pretty important one in the English legal history. Smith admitted to shooting and killing Millwood, but pled not guilty to the charges as he was adamant that it was by mistake. Throughout the trial, Smith showed a great deal of remorse and shame. He was physically unable to stand without the aid of someone else, and he had difficulty even getting words out in his own defense. During the trial, Millwood's sister testified that Smith did not give her brother enough time to respond to the challenge before Smith firing the shot. Millwood's mother-in-law also testified that she recounted that Thomas Millwood had been mistaken for the ghost on several other occasions, and she had warned him to put out a great overcoat to conceal the white garment of his trade. Several witnesses also came out to testify on Smith's behalf, including the man who arrived shortly after the shooting, John Locke, William Girdle, and George Stowe. Smith argued that he shot in self-defense, claiming that Millwood continued to advance on him, and fearing his own safety, he shot Millwood. After hearing the testimonies, the jury found Smith guilty of manslaughter. The bench responded with Lord Chief Baron refusing to accept the charge of manslaughter, and instead insisted that the charge must be murder or not guilty. So what's the difference between murder and manslaughter? Murder is killing purposely and knowingly, while manslaughter is killing as a result of not considering the consequences of an action. The response from Lord Chief Baron was backed by Mr. Justice Rook, who said the court has no hesitation whatever with regard to the law, and therefore the verdict must be guilty of murder or a total acquittal from want of evidence. This was followed by Mr. Justice Lawrence, who said, quote, "You have heard the opinion of the whole court settled as to the law on this point. It is, therefore, unnecessary for me to state mine in particular. Upon every point of view, this case is, in the eye of the law, a murder, If it be proved by the facts, whether it has or not is for you to determine and return your verdict accordingly. I think one can say that Smith killed with the purpose to eliminate the ghost from his community, but his purpose was to kill the ghost, not Millwood the human. Can we still call this case a murder? The jury reconvened briefly and returned with another guilty verdict, this time for murder. Francis Smith was sentenced to death by hanging, after which his body was to be dissected. That Smith believed Millwood was a ghost was irrelevant at this time. Upon hearing the verdict, Smith almost fainted and has to be carried away. Law Chief Baron MacDonald, aware of the great public interest in Smith's fate, referred the case to Kane, who had the power to commute the sentence. By 7 p.m. that evening, the King commuted Smith's death sentence to 1 year of hard labor. Well, 1 year of hard labor is still tough, maybe 200 years ago. I wonder what kind of hard labor it is, but I'm sure it's not just a piece of cake. Later in July of that year, Smith received a full pardon and was released. Smith's case revealed a flaw in the English law code. The flaw consisted of a lack of defense for the person acting in good faith, and believing actions, including violence, was necessary but had misunderstood the situation. It was debated for more than a century, and this flaw was not satisfactorily corrected until 180 years later, in the matter of Regina Williams. Basically, if an individual mistakenly used force that was believed necessary to protect him or herself, or to prevent a crime from being committed, then as long as the belief was reasonably held and the prosecution could not prove otherwise, no crimes could be said to have taken place. The United States also have a similar law regarding self-defense. However, this law is not adapted by all countries. In some countries, if you kill someone out of self-defense because you believe that person was threatening your life, you may still face the charge of murder or manslaughter. What's the law regarding self-defense in your countries? Please leave your answer in the comment section. I highly appreciate it. Although the trial for Smith was closed, an unsettled matter at the heart of the story remained unsolved. Who was the ghost of Hammersmith? There were a few theories. The huge publicity given to this case persuaded the true culprit to come forward. John Granham, an elderly shoemaker. He had been pretending to be a ghost using a white sheet to frighten his apprentices, who had frightened Granham's children with ghost stories. Supposedly 2 days later, upon hearing the shooting, Granham turned himself to the magistrates, confessing that he was the Hammersmith ghost. The magistrates, on the other hand, uncertain with how to proceed, granted him bail while they would inquire further into the matter. No records of further charges against John Granham was found, and there was no record showing that Granham has ever been punished. Quite frankly, Granham was a singer at church and he even sang at Millwood's funeral, which is a direct result of the hysteria over the Hammersmith ghost. After Granham's confession, the appearance of the Hammersmith ghost did seem to stop. However, according to one source, Granham was only responsible for one appearance on December 29th as the Hammersmith ghost. Also, I'm not sure if Granham would attempt to scare someone to death, as in the case of the elderly woman and pregnant lady who died after seeing the ghost. So that brings to another theory that multiple people were responsible for dressing up as a ghost. It was unclear whether it would have been a coordinated group or just individuals who was trying to take advantage on a legend just to have some fun at the expense of the neighbors. I guess the takeaway message for the story can be, being spooky on Halloween is cool, but being spooky every day may cost your life. Also, be aware of the self-defense law in the country you stay. This is the end of our haunted murder case today. Please subscribe to Missing Piece for weekly mystery and crime stories. If you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to click the like button and leave a comment below. See you next time.